So, the 577 billion euro scandal. Lost. Gone. Nichta. And what really it means. This week, the European Court of Auditors published a report confirming that 577 billion euro. 577 billion euro is gone, is untraceable out of the COVID recovery fund that they created. Thousands of recipients are unidentified, billions went to unknown entities, and the auditor stated they simply cannot confirm how the money was used, whether it was fairly used or corruption. And this is not a minor accounting issue. The auditors for years were warning the EU head, the EU leadership, that things are bad. And because the rules were not created as it should have, the money cannot be traced. And they did nothing. Incompetence? Yeah, not to this extent. 577 billion euro is not disappearing just because someone incompetent. It only disappears if they want it to disappear. And, by the way, it comes with the same commission that created a text message during COVID time, right? Von der Leyen, that suddenly disappeared also when it came out that 35 billion euro vaccine deal was illegal. So this video is about these people, what they have done, and yes, this scandal proved why is there a war in Ukraine. War is always the best business to hide the truth. So, just to quickly mention what is the Recovery and Resilience Facility, the COVID Recovery Fund that was created in 2020 under emergency conditions to help businesses survive, because everyone can remember at that time things were bad, everyone was panicking and stores were closing daily, never to be open again. And it was deliberately created under emergency orders that it left huge doors open, let's just say that, with very, very anti-fraud languages in it. So pretty much anyone could do anything, calling it an emergency. Totally distributed until January 2006, so this year, pretty much half years ago, 577 billion euro. That's 577,000 million, to help you put it in perspective. And I can go lower numbers as well, but I think you feel that what that money means. This money is the biggest ever fund that just disappears into thin air under the amazing government that already proved they give a no fuck about us citizen, about you, your mother, your father, your grandparents, or anyone else all around the world, by the way. Just take a look at their support towards the regime in Israel. This is a final verdict that happened now. A final verdict, which means they already checked everything. They already tried everything. They already followed up tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of invoices trying to fund the money. Gone. 577 billion euro is gone. And there is no one to take accountability for it. This is how European Union works right now. And let's just talk about our amazing leadership. In 2021, right after the whole COVID situation when it started, there was the Pfizer Gate incident Most of you most likely have heard about it, because that showed already how rotten the institution is, and nothing was done. Early in 2021, Commissioner President Ursula von der Leyen personally negotiated 35 billion vaccine contracts with the Pfizer CEO directly, face to face, not in diplomatic meetings, not in official conferences, directly. Basically broke every single rule and procurement how it should have done. And when the New York Times journalists, they were the first one to find it, sent an official request for the documentation proving that it was not illegal, von der Leyen's answer was, oh, it's gone. The information that was through SMS messages on her own personal phone disappeared completely. Somehow, I don't understand how is it possible, disappeared. Every single part of it. How much was paid back to her about it? What were the details about the deal? Everything is gone. The European Union's own ombudsman found her guilty for maladministration, so basically stealing. In May 2025, the European General Court ruled that the Commission has violated the EU transparency law, one of the basic principles of how the European Union works, and the Charter of the Fundamental Rights, by deleting these messages, and nothing happened. Nothing. Nobody resigned. Nobody was fired, and von der Leyen was even reappointed for a second term, despite court case, despite ombudsman ruling, despite everything. And no European citizen has voted for her ever. That's the problem that most people don't understand. The European Union at the highest level works on such a high democratic deficit that already proves that at its core it's a completely rotten and corrupt institute. And I say it as a proud European, I say it as someone who was raised on the European principles, who thought we can change the fucking world by rule of law, by promoting real democracy, since you know democracy is originating from fucking Europe. And this is the European Union. Von der Leyen has never been a candidate in the EU election at all. Do you understand? She wasn't even a candidate. No one voted for her, basically. She was elected in 2019, basically in the back room, saying like, you know guys, although we have very good candidates who would lead us to victory, who would help us create and continue in the way that was supposed to be, or you know what, put us back on the road to make EU great again. But here is this bitch who will put every money in our pocket, and we are the elite, so we do whatever the fuck we want. So she was elected. That's it. She passed the European Parliament vote by 9 votes. 9. The narrowest possible, by the way. Out of 751 votes, she got 383. Even her own party condemned the whole process, how it happened, because all of those votes came from secrecy, from unknown promises in the back room. Now we can start to see what she promised for those people. 577 billion euro. is gone. And you know what is the funny part? It wasn't even her first corruption problem. Before she was even elected to become the commissioner of the European Union, she had already been investigated by the German Bundestag for awarding hundreds of millions of defense contracts to personal consulting networks outside the official procurement rules, and then illegally diverting her phone to obstruct the parliamentary investigation. She already played the same game once, deleting messages from her personal fucking phone and emailing how she cheated money. And they elected her. And they elected her after secret meetings in the back room. Like, this is the European Union. I'm sorry, doesn't it sound very fucking similar what's happening to the US? But that's the fucking problem. We were supposed to be better. We were supposed to be better and let corruption stay in the fucking US. The promise was that we rule by law. And after the UK left, there was a high chance, finally there was a real promise, a real chance that we will turn to the right way. Von der Leyen and her little friendies are so corrupt to the core that there is no word for saying it. And this is not even the first scandal about her, let's just say that. You have to know about her husband, that he works in the medical field. He was the medical director of Orgenesis Incorporation, an American biotechnology company focused on cell and gene therapy, including mRNA technology. What later on was designed as one of the best vaccine, not best, like the best vaccine solution for COVID shots. Yeah. And while he was leading it, the company got €4 million grant in 2022, while his wife, von der Leyen, was running the commission, and the commission decided to give that company €4 million funding. That already should be a warning. In any normal country in the East, at least, in Asian countries, that's already right away a no-go. Alright, it seems in European Union it's perfectly fine by now. Then, when he moved over and went into an Italian research company, becoming the supervisory board member, suddenly that company got as well €320 million from the same recovery fund that later on, right now, was stolen. Out of that 577 billion, all of it started already in 2022 in such a deep level. But it's perfectly fine. And you know what? When the Italian media found it out, he quickly, Habib Ryer, suddenly retired as well from the board membership, saying like, no, I have nothing to do with it. And run home. And nothing came out to be. Because von der Leyen is the ruler. She's the queen. And then let's talk about the other leaders in the great European Union that we have to die for apparently right now. Kaja Kallas, the big foreign policy chief of the European Union, who has somehow the lowest education ever filling up that position, who barely speaks English other than her own mother tongue, while every other diplomat and worker in the European Union usually speaks 3-4 main languages of the EU. But who cares? She's the boss. And the woman who loves to promote nowadays that how sad her upbringing was and how much she suffered under the Soviet Union rules, how difficult her life was, and she knows what is the best. Trust her decision. She knows how bad that time was. She suffered so much. Yeah. That poor Baltic woman Her father, Sim Kallas, was a senior member of the Communist Party of the Soviet Union from 72 to 1990. He was a director of the Estonian branch of the Soviet Sberbank, the central financial institution of the Soviet system. At the age of 31, by the way. A very successful man, right? And then, even after the collapse of the USSR, he switched without any issues. Like, who cares? He was one of the highest members of the Soviet Union. He right away became president of the Estonian State Bank, a founding member of the Reform Party, a finance minister, a prime minister, and even a European commissioner. An ex-communist leader. But poor Kaja Kallas, that poor child suffered so much during her upbringing. Because imagine the shame. Imagine the pain. When she could barely afford to go to school in the newest fucking Rolls Royce that daddy bought her. Again, daddy was acing out the political field, let's just say that, at a very, very early age. But poor Kaja Kallas was suffering so much under the Soviet Union rule that right now she tells us that we have to fight no matter what Russia, and we, if needed, have to die for it. That is the chief of the foreign affairs in the EU, next to von der Leyen. Oh, wanna hear more? Okay, let's move on. Roberta Metsola, the president of the European Parliament. But we're not even talking anymore about the fucking Commission. Let's talk about the Parliament. The person who's overseeing the European Union's legislative transparency, well, supposed to be, failed to declare 125 gifts within required legal deadline, including presents from the Moroccan politicians or Bahraini parliament members. But what would be the problem with it, right? After all, she's just the head of transparency. She failed to declare multiple sponsored trips on time, including trip to Israel, paid by the Israeli state, or trips to Davos, paid by the Ukrainian charity. Her husband is a top lobbyist for the Royal Caribbean, the world's second largest cruise operator, by the way, while she was pushing green shipping regulations through the parliament. Again, what would be the issue there, right? Oh, and she appointed her own brother-in-law as the head of the cabinet. She introduced new ethic rules after the Qatargate, with specific exemptions. The rules do not apply to the parliament president herself. And she's responsible for transparency in the European Parliament. Do you fucking understand what it means? Like the European Union, the big institute of 27 sovereign states who's protecting freedom, human rights, who's protecting democracy all around the world. Just proved to become the most corrupt institution pretty much in the world. Well, maybe not in the world, you're right, because there are other places. This fucking microphone stand is killing me. Like, you know, in East Asia or in deep Africa or America. But very great that we can say that we are standing on the right level right now as the European Union, right? And you see, this is most fascinating. How many people on the internet is arguing, thrashing, cursing, spitting on each other saying like, no, Russia is the evil, no, we have to kill all of them, no matter the cost, we have to win the war. Which was started during the ruling of this commission, this leadership. So what I would like to everyone for to understand without joking, this war is a smokescreen. This war is nothing else than an excuse, than a cover. So we don't have time to pay attention to these details. 577 billion euro is lost from the citizens' pockets, from the citizens' tax-paying money, and from all the money that was put aside to help Europe survive. And Kaja Kallas, von der Leyen, Roberta Mazzola, under their leadership, all of it was stolen from you, from me, from every single European Union citizen. I know, trust me, I understand what's happening in Ukraine is awful. It is awful. I know many Ukrainians. And the fact that so many innocents die in a war that they don't even want to participate in is awful. It's brutal. War is always the worst solution. But I want you to understand as well, war never happens naturally. Not anymore. War is not heterogeneous. Okay? War is the most basic political tool in the set that they use usually to look away. Just take a look at America, the United States. Trump was the biggest outspeaker against war. He won the latest election saying that the other party, the other side wants war. The Democrats will bring us into war, da 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 da. And the moment the Epstein files came out, because he had to bring out since he was promising it, and even his own circles, there were some people like, yo, bro. Suddenly there is a war against Iran. That's one thing when we talk about the Zionists and how they let him thinking that it will be over in seconds and whatnot. But it doesn't matter how we look at it. The goal of that war was to take the attention away. People, my brothers and sisters, European citizens, you have to understand this 577 billion is not pocket money. And even if it were only 5,000, or you know what, 5 fucking euro, as long as it's gone without a trace from our money, from the government that we are supposed to trust, that money worth more than anything else. This is Europe's own Epstein files. 577 billion files. And that's why there is a war. There is other reasons as well. It's very important to understand that the European Union cannot survive alone. No matter what you think or what you were educated of, geographically, which is given, it's on the fucking map, anyone can look at it. Europe cannot survive alone because it sits on one of the rare, scarcest land on earth with one of the biggest population as an entity. And not to mention with the biggest GDP basically in the world, with very strong industrial powers like Germany, without resources. Obviously, I think everyone can understand it cannot work like that. It cannot exist. You cannot work and develop while not having anything. So it's very important to understand that Europe is a very resource poor area. And we talk about geography. It's not something you can control or affect with politics. And this union, this economic engine, sits in an area where you have nothing to use. So 57% of all the European Union energy is imported. You understand? We talk about everything. That's energy, electricity, oil, gas, everything else. And out of that, 90% of oil consumption is imported. 90% of oil is imported into European Union. And we don't talk about cars. So most people misunderstand. It's not about like what you put in the car and oh my God, like we are turning into electric cars. So anyway, who cares? Cars is the least of the problem here. We talk about industry. We talk about heavy machinery. We talk about agriculture. Everything and all of it requires extreme amount of oil and gas. That's why European Union struggles now for years, because since Russia doesn't send us the cheap oil and gas, we are screwed. And that's my other thing. Before 2022, Russia gas supplied 40% of everything we need as European Union and way below the prices of others. That was one of the main ingredients for the success of the European Union. So from some perspective, and not a small perspective, we can say that Russia helped to create the European Union, because without the economic success, Europe would have never been what it is. And that economic success came from Russian help, resources. Do you really think that they are the main enemy then? Oh, come on. The relationship was severed, but it has nothing to do with who's evil and who's not. Just take a look at Iran. For decades, you heard everywhere in radio, news, films that Iran is evil, they are terrorists. This war proved that the real terrorists are America and the Zionists, not Iran. Even when they bombed schools, bombed bridges, Trump proudly showed that we blew out their biggest bridge, which is a war crime, by the way. Iranians really professionally shut down only military targets. It's not even valid information so far, because they really try to block and silence everything. But nearly everything was devastated in the Middle East connected to America. Every single base suffered damages, and some of them to such extent that most likely will never be able to open again. And they still lost how many? 14 soldiers during this war. And how many was murdered in Iran? Civilians, little girls in schools. When we talk about terror, when we talk about real terrorism, look what's happening right now in Palestine and Lebanon. That is real terror. And they were teaching you from the beginning that 9/11 is terrorism. And we have to kill every Arab because they are the terror. They are the terror. We see right now what's happening, and we finally start to see the truth. But it's just as important to understand this whole war between Ukraine and Russia is a proxy war handled by the EU for two main reasons. One, 577 billion euro. And two, Ukraine is a very, very rich country when we take a look at their resources. The biggest agricultural land in whole Europe, if we include it as Europe. And the eastern part, Donbas region and stuff like that, are very, very rich in minerals that the EU desperately wants and need. And they decided, let's kill two birds or two flies with one hit. If we start a war, no one will pay attention how much we stole, and we can get that land. They made the same strategic mistake that America did in Iran. They thought, oh, it will be so easy. We give all the weapons, they won't be able to take the fall, to take the losses. Russia proved more than once that they can take the losses. But what is pathetic, that we force them to take the losses? This is all politics. Take a look at just few years ago when there was Victory Day. Ukrainians, Russian, Uzbeks, and every other member of the Soviet Union at that time went together on the parade and being proud of their ancestors who died, 27 million of them who died to stop the Nazi Germany. And now suddenly they should be the evil. Take a look at the economy. Europe is there where it is right now, thanks to Russia, who supported us from the beginning, giving us cheap oil and gas. And they are the biggest enemy now. No. Our biggest enemies is sitting up there in the commission and the parliament. They stole everything in the last 10 years from us. Our future, our taxes, and our hope for peace. Because no matter what happens by now, we are in a war. The question is not even whether it was a distraction or not. The question whether we can turn back yet. You have to understand the enemy is not outside, it's within. Last part, it's a bit different, but it's just about the future I want to talk about. That I firmly believe and support that our future is not transatlantic. It's not America. It's Eurasia. And there are more than one reasons for it. First of all, even just the basics of geopolitics serves saying that whoever controls the heartland controls the world. And that heartland, depending on the context, is usually East Europe region, because it is a gate between Europe and Asia. And it's very heavy in agriculture and heavy metals. Hence Poland, Ukraine. Belarus, by the way. But the other thing as well, that this war in the Middle East has proven that America is not an ally. First of all, America was never an ally. What they want is full domination, full control over the world. The world. In the last 70 years, they started more than 255 military campaigns all around the world. Millions of people's blood is dried on American hands who pulled the trigger, directly or indirectly. Most of the suffering you see in the world, most of the terrorist groups was created by the CIA or M16 UK. That's not future. They proved in the last 70 years that the US doesn't know peace, don't know peace. They don't know how to exist in cooperation with others. Is it the future you want for yourself? Is it the life you would imagine as humanity, as 21st century people living in this world? If there would be an Eurasian Union, economic cooperation, nothing like this rotten EU, then if that unity would say, sit down, America, there's no more war, they would have no choice than to sit down, because that would be quite literally and from every single perspective the most powerful unit in the world. We talk about such amount of power and money that if it were to say that from tomorrow we destroy every single bullet in the world, no more weapons, no more bloodshed, it would happen. And that's quite literal. And that is the main reason why Asia is always the enemy and the Middle East is always an enemy. Because those elite circles who own the money, who own the old money in the world, don't want peace. War is always the best business. And this one, don't just talk about money. We talk about diversion. They have 577 billion reasons not to create peace. And that is what I would like all of you to understand, and I would like everyone to understand. Peace is not something you can't hold on to, or just an idea that doesn't exist. It exists. Why it doesn't exist per se in the system is because the system designed not to be peaceful. The system is designed so those who sit in some tables can make a fortune from it and keep in power no matter what. And the first step to reach this peace is, yes, I do believe still until now that it's the European Union. Because if it would work out, if it would be a real union of the 27 nations and later on as many as needed, it would show that diversity can work. It would show that there is a hope and there is a promise for a future where 200 countries can work together as well in peace. And that's the problem, that right now, what the European Union shows, what the leadership of 450 million people shows, that it's not working out. And it's up to us European citizens, to stand up and say it was enough. It is up to us to say we don't believe anymore for the bullshit and the propaganda, and all those people who caused it has to be accountable for it. We have to take accountability for them, for their actions. Or if you give a finger, they want all arm. I understand it's difficult to stay calm, seeing so many news about the war, but just take a look around the world and you see the reality, you can see the truth. Use AI tools if needed, ask questions over questions over questions until you reach a point where you can see enough, because a single question won't help you anything. Prompting is very important. And you can become as well a researcher yourself to some extent, to understand what's happening around us. And it's very important to stay open-minded, to pay attention, because we are getting to a point of no return. Extremist ideas right now are flooding our world. Neo-Nazi groups openly fighting in Ukraine. The Israeli regime is committing a genocide while creating apartheid laws. The world will reach a breaking point where we cannot turn back anymore. It's very important for us, the young generation, to stand up and say, it was enough. This is not the future we expect. And it's time for those who want to still force on us the old rules to step away. Greed cannot control our society. This consumerism is not the solution. It destroys not just the world, but us as well. Cooperation is the only viable future to get out from this planet and maybe conquer more, so we can focus our energy somewhere else. I don't believe that people can stay peaceful, but it's very fucking important that at least you learn to control it and aim it on something else than each other. Eurasia is Europe's future, only viable future. Europe has the power to create fantastic things and combine it with China, which shows that they are right now the future, with the unlimited resources and land mass of Russia, combining it with the hardworking behavior of many other nations there, Japan, Korea, India, and the Middle East, Iran. That is the only viable future for us as humanity. It's due time to drop this Russian hate, which is nothing more than a political tool. Move over from what happened and find the next step and take responsibility and make sure that we, for those people, take responsibility who caused all of this suffering. It's not Russia. It's our own institution that is not democratic at all. But what do you think? Do you think the European Union right now is heading for the right direction? Are these the principle we wanted to create?